Alright, we're back. We're doing Bloodborne minimum requirements run with the Holy Moonlight Sword. We are level 19, no more leveling up. We leveled up just enough from Cruel Fate Origin to use the Moonlight Greatsword. And then the trick is to beat the game. To just beat the game at minimum requirements with a weapon. And I've done this for like the Church Pick and Ludwig's Holy Blade and the Kirk Hammer, you know. And I've always, like I love the Moonlight Sword. I absolutely love it. But it was always like kind of a nightmare to imagine this run because you have to kill Ludwig with a weapon that you're not going to upgrade all the way at low level. Because you need to save those upgrade materials for the weapon that you actually want to do the run with, right? Well, we did the Church Pick run, and that required beating Ludwig, and I think we beat him with like a +6 Saw Spear. And after that, I was like, okay, I think I can do it. So here we are, we're finally doing this run. Now, yesterday, we finished up the Nightmare Frontier. We did all of the Nightmare Frontier. We got the Cold Blood Flower Buds and the Lauren Chalice. So we could open a Lauren Chalice once we get that Ritual Blood. It occurred to me I did not explore the bonus area of the third layer of the first Chalice dungeon. So that's what we're doing here, and this is just an easy way to get Ritual Blood 1 and Ritual Blood 2 so that we can do the next Chalice dungeon, which has way less cool bosses in it. These bosses are way worse. Casual Slub, welcome back, and thank you very much for 5 months. Very much appreciated. Steiner's Armor, hello. Caius, hello. Now, where is the, there's a door over here somewhere. Put deck. Damn. Thank you for the 5 gift subs. Oh no! We're okay. We're okay. Thank you very much. That is very generous, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Half-empty water bottle. Sir Grant, Texas. Dude Hand V Lee, big active, and she likes my DS. Welcome back. Enjoy your emotes. It's actually kind of nice being able to just melt some enemies. Being able to melt some dudes without stressing it is kind of a nice way to start the stream, start the day, start the playthrough. Not so bad. Our Moonlight is +8 at the moment, so it's got room to get a little better. Maybe not much, but a little bit. And we will take everything we can get. We will take every extra damage that we can get from this thing. Yeah, you almost killed me with those gift subs. But to be fair, that would have been totally fine. That would have been absolutely fine. Alright. So, that's pretty much it. We got the big treasure. We got the Ritual Blood. Now I just need to remember which way it is to get out of here. So now we can make a second Chalice dungeon. We're going over the lore while we're doing this challenge run, because the story and the lore of Bloodborne is very good. This also got me. I was listening to Redgrave's Paleblood Hunt last night while I was like laying down to go to sleep, and I was thinking about things that like, you know, the Paleblood Hunt is like so good from like a just a fan-made perspective or whatever, you know. And it's kind of like the basis for like all of the knowledge and understanding that like a huge group of people have about the story of Bloodborne and the way the events of Bloodborne shake out. And I'm always surprised when I find something that Redgrave says or thinks that I disagree with, because I remember the first time I read it, I was like, oh yeah, of course, everything he's saying is right, probably. I don't recall anything off the top of my head, but I remember last night laying there and like hearing things and being like, wait, is that right? I don't think that's right. Nothing jumps out at me off the top of my head, but I know there were a few instances there. But the Chalice dungeon lore, it's such a big deal. Like Alfred told us that. Oh wait, I don't think we can get any new dialogue from Sleepy Gehrman until after Rom.
Oh, Lawrence, what's taking you so long? I've grown too old for this. Of little use now, I'm afraid.
One of the things that Redgrave was talking about last night was he was talking about Gehrman, or one of the things last night while I was listening to it, he was talking about Gehrman, and like it's just sort of like an offhanded comment, but he's like, you know, maybe Gehrman was like a groundskeeper for Bergenworth, and I was like, damn, that makes so much sense. It's really like the politics of Dark Souls are like so upfront and right there that they're kind of hard to miss. And I just kind of assumed that they weren't there with Bloodborne, but like no, like they absolutely are. Like the fact that all the hunters and all the people who have to clean up the mess are like the everyday regular folks across every scourge, like every beast hood scourge that pops up. It's like it's always on the workers and like the lower and middle class people to like deal with it. Like in Canehurst, it's like, yeah, I kill the gargoyle beasts that spring up every once in a while, and I take care of the giant ticks in the yard, but also I have to like wash the windows and dust the banisters and stuff. So we can do the Central Thumeru Chalice now, and so we will. But yeah, the idea of Gehrman as like a groundskeeper is just really funny to me. Like he's got his big scythe, but he's just out there like knocking the weeds off the sidewalk. Oh man. Yeah. So anyway, the lore of the Chalice dungeons. Back in Bergenworth, these archaeologists found like a civilization, like a ruin underground, and they kept exploring it and exploring it and exploring it until they found what I think was a Bridus. Most definitely probably a Bridus. They call it a holy medium, and the fact that Abridus's blood is the blood that the church is using would make Abritus the medium of the Holy Blood. Hey! Okay, that didn't work. Jesus! Would you stop it? Now, I personally... I like to imagine that as the hunter is experiencing the Chalice dungeons, like, we're using arcane tools. We're using, like, our knowledge of the arcane. We're essentially using magic to unlock these chalices that have been locked ritually. Probably the scholars at Byrgenwerth locked the chalices up to keep people from getting in. And then if you want access to them, you have to use, like, magic blood and a cup and a bone, and also, like, some what do you call those cells? Stem cells. You need some stem cells. And good lord, man. Hey, what's up, Draco? The flame sprayer is a really good gardening tool. Yeah, yeah. Ooh. So yeah, the chalices are, like, locked by magic, right? And the hunter goes through and finds all these ritual materials and a holy chalice, and is able to unlock these dungeons, these labyrinths that have been sealed away. So I like to think that the player character is experiencing the chalices in a sort of, like, time travel kind of way. Experiencing them just like the scholars at Byrgenwerth would have. But, you know, they're these nerdy bookworms, you know. It's hard to imagine, you know, Master Willem getting up off his lazy ass and going down here and digging around, right? So you had folks like Gehrman and like Lawrence and Maria. You had these Indiana Jones types known as the Tomb Prospectors. Attire of the Tomb Prospector who explores the old labyrinth on behalf of the Healing Church. The Healing Church traces its roots back to Byrgenwerth, and is therefore aware of the ruins' true importance. They contain much more than mere hunter trinkets. Indeed, they had the very secrets of the old Great Ones, sought after by those with insight to imagine greatness. So, like, you had these, like, Indiana Jones types who are, like, down here doing archaeology and figuring stuff out about these civilizations that don't exist anymore. And they find, they start to find important artifacts, like the auger of Abritus. The initial encounter marked the start of an inquiry into the cosmos from within the old labyrinth, and led to the establishment of the choir. This is a remnant of the eldritch truth encountered at Byrgenwerth. So the slugs are like forebearers and familiars of great ones, sort of like those sharks in the ocean that have little fish that hang out with them, and like, you know. Those little fish who make a living off of hanging out with a shark. Those types of things. Okay, we just can't hit each other. Hey, what's up, Ornifex? Probably Alex. What do you think about the Demon Souls fluted armor in the dungeons? Lore, just from soft messing around? I mean, yeah, it's very obviously like, I don't think we're supposed to. I don't think we're supposed to think it's Boletaria, but it is. I mean, like the Canehurst people. There's like pictures of Canehurst folks in that armor, you know. I think it's supposed to be representative of you know, Canehurst having been down here and exploring. Yeah. But yeah, the fish. The big fish that swim with, or I'm sorry, the small fish that swim with the big fish, and they just make a, you know, like that's their life. Their entire ecosystem is based around hanging out with the big fish. That's actually a thing that comes up multiple times, 2 times in Bloodborne, in a much more direct way. On a couple of occasions, we find whale carcasses. One in the labyrinth, and again in the fishing hamlet. And there is like whale carcasses that you know, whales that die in the ocean. You know, think about how huge a whale is. When a whale dies in the ocean, and its body sinks, it creates its own ecosystem. There are entire generations of fish and other creatures that live and die in the ecosystem of a dead whale, which is something we see with the body of Kos and the fishing hamlet villagers, and the labyrinth down here on a couple of occasions will show us a whale carcass here in the labyrinth as well. So yeah, like the great ones, you know, they're sort of like precipitated. They're sort of like when you start finding slugs and snails and all this weird, you know, like they call them phantasms in this game, but when you start finding those weird creatures, it's sort of like you're on the right track, and those things lead to great ones. And somehow the power of those great ones is like manifest through the snails and the slugs and stuff. Uh-oh. Oh, shit! So the beast-possessed soul he drops tempering blood gems, which are the ones that increase physical damage. But the beast-possessed soul will typically drop a tempering blood gem that has a secondary effect on it, like add fire attack or something like that. Which makes sense because, you know, he's a big beastie werewolf dude with fire. So if we take a look at the gem he drops, and keep in mind, we're only in the second Chalice dungeon, so like this is not going to be like a great gem or whatever. Actually, he dropped us just a 13.5%, I think. That's not bad. Usually it has like some secondary on it that makes it worse, but that's just a decent gem. That's just fine. We'll happily take that. Yeah, I'll point it out, Gallon. It's a recurring. The whale carcass in the labyrinth is a recurring thing. Like you'll see it a lot. It's in the rooms where typically you'll go underground, and there's a room with it's just like a puddle of like a huge room full of blood, and like sometimes there's pigs in there, and sometimes there's pig carcasses. Sometimes there's, there's usually like a lot of rats in a room like that. If you look on the ground in those rooms, you'll see the whale carcass. Did you know that in Italian they translated Keeper of the Old Lords and Watchdog with the same word? That's neat. Well, I suppose, like, they both serve, like, it's sort of how, like, in Dark Souls 3 they call Vort the Watchdog of the Boreal Valley. Calling a human a watchdog in English is, like, that's not uncommon. Jeez. Dirty gemstones chat. So this is somebody was asking about the armor down here. Yeah, Ghoulish was asking about the armor down here, and like we see, like this is very obviously the armor that we are supposed to associate with Canehurst. When we go to Canehurst and we see all the suits of armor lined up, we see all the suits of armor like lined up on the horses and stuff. There's one of these suits of armor is like perfectly slapped in like the Demon Souls pose. There he is. Now, like, that is absolutely, like, a little Easter egg, but I don't think we're supposed to, like, read too deep into... Now, if I'm not I keep running into that. If I'm not mistaken, there's a slime guy up here. Yeah, there he is. I see you. I see you, slime guy. Actually, you can actually find the whale carcass in these areas too. These little, I don't know what you would call them. Like I want to say wells, but it's obviously not right. But you can find the whale carcasses in those rooms as well. I guess rooms is a little generous. I do want to use the rifle on this character, but I can't until after we level him up. It is very noisy in here suddenly. We've seen patches in the Nightmare Frontier, but well, in the lecture room and the Nightmare Frontier, but we haven't seen or the lecture building. We haven't seen them in the Chalices yet. Oof. Man, got crowded in here real quick. J Daddy Dibble, hello. So now we've got the Hintertomb Chalice, which makes our third. We should have gotten this second if we were like, you know, but we're doing things out of order, obviously. But the Hintertomb Chalice is like a whole different place. It's going to allow us to go to a second type of chalice layout. You've got the Thumeru. You've got the Thumeru, whatever you want to call it. Then you've got the Hintertomb. Then you've got the Lauren. And then you've got Is. And then at the very end, you get the Thumeru Il dungeons. I guess that's everything, right? We can just hop down here now. I don't know if we're on the right side. It's across the bridge. So yeah, we're on the right side. We'll go through here. The Hintertombs is a place where you can get triangle gems. So if you're playing early game and you're really dying to get like a triangle blood gem, Hintertombs is where you can grab one to last you until you get to the Is Chalice dungeons. Ow. Ooh, a cursed fireblood gemstone. We could actually make use of that. If we weren't doing this run, we could make use of that. So, you might remember that like one of the first things we got when we were using the saw cleaver, one of the first blood gems that we got was the fire waning that you get from the cathedral ward. And like, so if you've got a weapon that has a waning gem slot in it, like, you can slap that fire gemstone in the waning slot once it hits +6, once the saw cleaver hits +6, which isn't hard to get, as you saw on this run, on this playthrough. And then we went and we killed the watchdog of the old lords in the very first Chalice dungeon, and he dropped us, you know, a fire attack up 8.4%. And now we're also getting fire attack up 13%. Now this is a terrible gem because it has attack down, but the fact that those dudes can drop you that gem, like, that's pretty crazy. 13% fire at this early. That'd be pretty good. I've never done a 99 arcane character because I just don't like this. Like, I really like the Bloodborne hunter tools, the spells. I just don't like them that much. And if you do 99 arcane, like, you don't leave yourself a lot of room to do other things. Now, like, you don't have to do other things. If you wanted to, you could have a 99 arcane build with enough stats to use, like, the saw spear or the saw cleaver, and like put badass arcane gems in it, and like, I mean, that's good enough to like win a shit ton of PvP and beat the game. You know what I mean? Like you will want for nothing. It's just not super fun for me, you know, because I like these wacky weapons. And the saw cleaver's great. Uh-oh. But there's so much to play with that I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to just use the saw cleaver every time I play Bloodborne. I would like to play the weird stuff too, you know? Is this room really nothing? Surely I missed a door. Did I not? Huh. Yeah, I mean, and that's totally cool. Like, the fact that you can, like, the fact that if you have the ability to go into the Chalice dungeons and like beat the bosses with low stats, you can come into the Chalice dungeons, and then like by the time you get to Amelia, like, you're tearing the game apart. You're like melting the game. And that's pretty funny. Picking up a lot of Ritual Blood 3, and that's good. On a scale of 1 to 10, how OP is this twink build? Like, every twink build in Bloodborne is a 10. Just by virtue of the fact that, like, you can have a +10 weapon, and you can have, you know, like, it's, unless you're fighting like an overleveled password summoned phantom, it's very hard to lose an invasion in Bloodborne if you've got a +10 weapon and blood gems and your opponent doesn't. This boss I hate. I hate this boss so much. This is one of those bosses where, like, on a leveled run, it's not terrible, but on a challenge run, this boss is so bad, especially bad in defiled chalices. Like, the way this boss works, you can just, like, get in its face with a saw cleaver, or even, like, the Kirkhammer straight sword, or the Ludwig's Holy Blade straight sword. Like, whatever you want. You can get in this boss's face and just, like, mash attack, and on the second and on the third attack, you can press parry, and you will probably parry this thing. And you can just tear it apart with visceral attacks. Now, with the Moonlight Greatsword, I'm not going to be swinging fast enough to, like, stun lock it. So it's going to be a little difficult. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to use R2 and then try and parry. Now, my criticals, my visceral damage sucks because I haven't leveled up skill, right? So if I can do an R2 instead of a visceral, like, that's the way to go. But in that instance, my parry wasn't clean, and so I took the visceral just to regain that health. That's a very easy attack to parry right there, if you can bait it out. That right there is what you want to parry. The Keeper of the Old Lords has an attack that a lot of enemies in these games have. It's sort of like a "hey, get off of me" attack. It's like it's a punishment for you being too aggressive. And with the Keeper of the Old Lords, you can just attack, and then trigger that "get off me," and then you can parry it, and it just, you loop the fight. But the Moonlight Greatsword's too slow to use that, so that's not for us. Shit. So sometimes I can trigger it in one attack, and others I trigger it after 2 attacks. If you want to, you can also just, like, you can just gun spam it. You can just gun spam it, and it'll eventually try and do its counterattack against your gun, and then you parry it. It's just not a very engaging fight. Gorilla54, welcome back. Thanks for 3 months. I know what they do. I don't get how people generate dungeons with specific loot or bosses. Alright, so with, like, the save edited dungeons, you're putting the boss, like, bosses have, like, certain layers that they'll appear on, right? So there's like 3 layers to a Chalice dungeon. There's, like, layer 1, and then layer 1 heart, and then layer 2 heart, and then layer 3. Some dungeons have layer 4. Alright. Certain bosses can only appear on certain layers. For example, the pig. You know, or the brain sucker. The brain sucker or the pig is never going to be, like, the final boss of a Chalice dungeon, right? The Watchers are typically a first or second. And so each of those enemies, the pig, the Watchers, the brain sucker, they all have a dedicated loot table. So when these save edited Chalice dungeons, all they're doing is just moving modifiers around on, like, okay, it modifies your health, you know, your health's cut. They're modifying the curses on the dungeon, and then the dungeon makes itself, and it generates itself, but it generates itself in a controlled setting, if that makes sense. Like they're not actively like they're not actively putting things in the dungeons, I don't think. Like, okay, this dungeon's going to have, you know, this here. It's going to have this rune you can pick up in this room, and it's going to have this weapon you can pick up in this room. It just happens because it's all like random. But because the dungeon modified, like the dungeon modifier recognizes that the dungeon is so hard, it knows that its loot table has to be like really, really good, right? So, and the same thing goes for the bosses. The bosses, like, their loot table is like, I dropped this gem. This is the blood gem that I drop. And if I'm in layer 2, I drop this one. But if I'm in layer 3, I drop this one, and it's better. Like a Thumerian elder can drop a cursed cold gem, but if you fight it in layer 3 or below, it drops a cursed cold abyssal. Or the headless bloodletting beast, he drops a heavy blood gem. But if you fight him in layer 3 or layer 4, he drops a heavy abyssal. And so like the modders know this. They know the loot table. And so what they're doing is they're just creating a good opportunity, like a good chance to create a dungeon where the loot works in our favor. That's my understanding. I could be way off, but that's how I understand it works. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. But I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Yeah, we want to use this rifle, but it requires 9 blood tinge, and I can't have that until after the run. So we can now buy Ritual Blood 1 from the messengers, but if we go to the Insight messengers, we can buy Cold Blood Flower Buds and Bloodshot Eyeballs. And now we can buy the Bone Ash Mask and Armor. Armor made of bone ash, worn by the oldest keepers. The keepers who mined the slumbering great ones gained eternal life, preserved in ashen form, in a ceremony of flame that cremated body and soul. Now their frail armor is white and sinewy, a window into an arcane lost art. So these keepers, they watch over the great ones who are asleep. And the great ones, they existed in the physical plane in these labyrinths. But in their heads, you know, in their, like, they were gone. Their consciousness was no longer in their body. They needed their body, apparently, but their mind was ascended. And so they had all these things to watch after them. Watchdogs, keepers, watchers. And these folks, apparently, are preserved in ashen form in a ceremony of flame that cremated them. That's pretty wild. I really, really like their top. It looks nice. It has a cool cape. But my favorite thing about their top is that if you wear the foreigner's trousers, you get your suspenders. And that rules. And I love it. Gotta have my suspenders. Hey, good afternoon, Finny. And Eternal, hello. And Kelvin, hello. Let's repair our weapon. And then let's fortify our guns and stuff. Like the flame sprayer. And the torch. It'll help a little bit with damage, not much, but I got nothing else to use these shards on, right? I'm not sure I want to be upgrading my gun with twin bloodstone shards just yet, but that is something that we will keep in mind. We will finish up the exploration of this dungeon in just a minute, but I need to take a little break, and so this would be a good place to put a little VOD split. And yeah, we get to talk about Chalice dungeons a lot, and Chalice dungeon lore is like the event that starts everything in Bloodborne. So if we're doing this playthrough and we're talking about the lore and we're talking about the story, like, you have to talk about the Chalice dungeons, because that's literally how the whole thing started. So I'm glad that we're getting to do that.